So we are talking about the movie Brackenmore. For lack of a better description, this is very much like a Wicker Man type movie. We have a young woman who is told that she has been left an estate by her uncle she's never known out somewhere in rural Ireland. So she travels to there from London after a kind of like a bit of a spat she's had with her husband, and she's basically trying to find out who her uncle was and what he's left her, etc. And she's in this kind of very small kind of rural Irish town, and the locals seem a little bit odd. There seems to be some kind of strange festival, and of course there's some weird pagan shenanigans going on. So let's talk about Brackenmore, what works and what doesn't. So what worked first of all for me, I got to say, this was an interesting premise, despite the fact that it is a not particularly original one. And I've got to say, I quite like the main actress here, played by Sophie Hopkins, who was actually quite compelling as the lead. I don't think she's given a lot to work with in the script, but I thought the acting was quite good. And I have to say, it does have this kind of sense of rustic menace that kind of permeates this kind of like rural Irish community. And there's definitely this kind of level of kind of uneasiness. And I did quite like some of the imagery that we kind of see in this movie. It does look very kind of like spooky, almost kind of like a like we've seen in the kind of the Wicker Man and such like that, those type of films. Very kind of strange but kind of familiar at the same sort of time, especially if you are a horror fan. On the negative side for me, I thought the script was quite weak on this movie. It's a very, very slow movie, but I don't mind slow burn movies, providing they are ultimately an interesting film overall. And I've got to say, because this script is so kind of pedestrian in regards to what actually happens, it's something you've kind of seen a whole bunch of times before, but it takes ages to get there, and then it's filled with these kind of like slap head moments where you just think, man, this is just ridiculous. I mean, for a couple of examples, we have this character walks into this kitchen and there's kind of like little beds where she's sitting, and they've just got 7 heads of goats all over the place. Just kind of, oh, that's weird. We'll just kind of shrug that off. And then she's attacked by kind of a masked killer with a knife, and but she decides to kind of like hang around and doesn't think too much of it. And it's the way she's treated after that. Your alarm bells would be going off. The acting for the most part was pretty good with this, with the exception of the police investigator that we've seen, who's kind of a horrible actor, I've got to say, and kind of lowers the scenes that he's in. And the ending for me is just bizarre. It just comes out of nowhere for what seems to be a fairly kind of pedestrian plot. It just kind of goes in a different turn at the end, and I don't feel is set up enough, and it doesn't come across as a kind of a natural ending to what this movie is, and it seems to come out of nowhere a little bit. So overall, I've got to say this film was somewhat disappointing. It's a well-made film, but ultimately I feel the writing, first of all, was its biggest problem here. I think it was written by the same people who directed it, so hats off for the directing, not so much for the writing, but ultimately it comes across as unfulfilling and kind of unsatisfying. 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.